So I know that you can't really play this game because we could be doing this forever. But what do you make of, like, it was not a bunch of garbage time stuff. They were up 31-7 or 31-14 and basically sat on that for much of that fourth quarter. So I guess my question is, they scored 24. They outscored them 24-0 when it counted in the second half. So one, that tells you the defense looked a lot better in the second. Not that they were bad in the first, but they gave up 2 drives where Mr. Brosmer was really good, really accurate with the ball. Looked like he was gaining some confidence, and they marched down the field a couple of times, and he was accurate with the football. I didn't think it was bad defense from Iowa. They didn't give up these massive, super explosive plays. They gave up an explosive play down the sideline where the NBC commentator, or I shouldn't say commentator, the rules expert that they bring on, who I don't like. I don't know the guy's name, but I remember that he is also the same guy that they had for the Cooper DeJean thing last year. To me, he's sort of just, I like a rules expert like Gene Steratone. I know that's almost like asking for the top-notch dude. I think he's best in the business. But to me, this guy for NBC kind of just agrees with whatever the officials say. And they oftentimes will bring him in after, react to what the officials said. I just think that's kind of cheap and stupid. And one of the commentators even made the comment, here's my problem with the NBC broadcast. They went to break, the big play in the game, right? They go to break right when they announced that they were reviewing it. And this is a difficult catch. I mean, I don't know if it was Daniel Jackson, who it was for Minnesota, pinned the ball on his side, had 1 foot down, but was kind of bobbling it, but looked like he got it pinned with his foot still, 1 foot still down before his other foot hit out of bounds. And I think it was the right call. I think it was a catch. However, I think it's a catch primarily because it was called a catch in the field, and there's not enough evidence there to overturn. But the NBC crew acted like, oh, it's just obvious catch, just obvious catch. And it was pretty good defense from Deshaun Lee. I thought Deshaun Lee came in. That's a storyline that we haven't really talked about a lot, even during the postgame with Coach Patterson on Saturday. TJ Hall, it's funny, NBC still had TJ Hall's name up on the broadcast as a starter. Deshaun Lee played, I think, from start to finish at that primary corner spot opposite Jamari Harris and looked good. And, that's the luxury of having 2 guys with experience and a third guy they really like in John Nestor. One guy struggles. Not that you want to pull the plug right away, just like we don't do that with Cade McNamara, but you have a guy that can come in and play. And I thought Deshaun Lee did a pretty good job. Minnesota's got some good skill position players. I say that every year. I thought I would stand by what I said. I think they have taken a step back. They don't have a Rashad Bateman. They don't even have a Chris Ottman-Bell, but Daniel Jackson's really good. He's a little bit better than I thought. I thought he was impressive with basically everything he did, and I thought Iowa defended him pretty well. I think 2 things to clean up, one on offense, one on defense, and then there's several more things, but 2 primary things, from my opinion, from watching the game on Saturday, Mark, and rewatching the game on Saturday. Missed more tackles than we're used to seeing from an Iowa defense. I counted at least 3 from Jamari Harris, counted at least 1 or 2 from Sebastian Castro, and I think I counted at least 1 or 2 from Kyler Fisher. And Minnesota did a nice job there, especially in that first half, getting some of their quicker, more athletic players isolated on Kyler Fisher. And, there's the disadvantage of going back to your traditional 4-3 and kind of why Phil Parker transitioned to more that 4-2-5 with that hybrid safety linebacker look years ago, because it gives you a little bit more flexibility. And especially with play callers. And I was impressed with what's his face for Minnesota, the offensive coordinator. What's the guy's name, Mark? I should know this.
Well, it's not Kirk Shiraka anymore. I don't know.
I wanted to say Shiraka, but it's another. No, it's Harbaugh. I think it's pronounced Harbaugh. What's the guy's first name? But it's spelled Harbaugh. Anyways, they were highlighting him during the broadcast. I was impressed with how he called that second quarter. And like I said, they've still got some receivers that are skilled, that make you miss. And, between Taylor and Major, they got a pretty good tandem at running back. Now, their schedule's a bear. And I'm afraid the way they kind of shriveled in that second half, it was equally as impressive as it was disturbing if I'm a Minnesota fan. I got a text from your guy, or not a text, but a direct message on the live stream on StreamYard. Mark, you know how many calls we get after each of these games. And we had, 8 people, 10 people on hold. And your guy, Minnesota Dave, and I'm not jabbing at Minnesota Dave, but I just thought that was funny because he recovered from this statement. But he sends me a DM during the live stream, shortly after he got on. He says, if you can put me on as soon as possible, that would be great. Like, what do you want me to do? I got 10 people on hold. What do you, oh, okay. We'll just put you in front. Anyways, he ended up coming on later. Thank you, Aaron. Greg Harbaugh Jr., spelled like Harbaugh, but I think he says it's pronounced Harbaugh. Maybe
Okay.
because he
So
doesn't want
I
to be
wondered
associated.
about that. I did see the portion of the game when it might have been the beginning of the game. No, I didn't rewatch it. Anyway, a portion of the game where I saw that name come up and I thought,
Yeah, I don't think any relation to the Harbaugh family, and I think that's why he's like, I'm not pronounced differently. I think that's why I haven't done enough
hmm,
research, and I don't know a ton about his background. I remember researching him during the offseason because this is his first year, isn't it, Mark? Shiraka was there last year or
yes.
second year. It might be his second year.
I
Anyways,
believe it's his second year.
it doesn't matter. My point is, they do have a pretty good group of skill players, and Brosmer had his moments. I just don't know. I don't know what exactly they're missing. They don't seem to be as strong at tight end, although they did have a tight end make a touchdown catch, a pretty good touchdown catch off a brilliant throw from Brosmer. I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is that they're missing. I think they have the potential. I thought they looked for a time like they had the potential to be a good team. And then I look at the second half and I think their line is probably not as good as it has been. We talked about that going into the game. I think their rush defense. I mean, we the numbers heading into this game were excellent. I mean, they were top 20 in basically every defensive category. And I know but everybody's playing nobodies. Mark, we talked about this. So top 20 is good. When you're talking about the Power Four, your TV went off because it didn't like the facial expressions you were giving me. So I don't know how good they'll end up at the end of the year. All I know is Iowa put up 24 in the second half. Caleb Johnson ran wild on this team. And I've been wrong several times already this year with predictions. I had this one right. I had the spread on the dot. I had Iowa winning by 17. I had the final score of 27-10. It was 31-14. So, give 4 to Minnesota, give 4 to Iowa. And I don't know. I kind of feel better, and it certainly feel better than I did after Iowa State. And I feel better than after Troy as it relates to heading into the Ohio State game. I still think having the bye week when it is great. I know people have criticized Iowa, how they've come out of the bye week in times past. I will remind everybody that Tim Lester is the offensive coordinator this time around. And I think bye week preparation could have a greater impact for the coordinators than it does just the head coach. So you may see the biggest growth, and probably should see the biggest growth with the offense, with a new coordinator, and with a unit that showed little to no growth during past bye weeks under the previous OC. So reasons for optimism. It's going to be a fun game, 2:30 p.m. Central Time in a week and a half. I kind of wanted it to be a big noon kickoff, but boy, 2:30 on CBS, you can't go wrong with that either. What's the big noon game? Do you know, Mark?
I don't.
For that week? Yeah, you're focused on this week. I get it. But
I don't.
you and I kind of both, it's hard to predict these things now with CBS, Fox, NBC sharing the load. I mean, you basically get primetime all the time. And how about, what I thought of you Saturday night? I thought of you Saturday night because during the NBC broadcast, I think it was toward the end of the NBC broadcast, they announced next week's, as in this week's, NBC schedule. And they announced Ohio State, Michigan State. And correct me if I'm wrong, is that game on NBC?
It's on Peacock.
It's on Peacock, Mark.
Yeah.
And I have to think, when I saw it, I thought of Mark Rogers, and I thought, that has to shock Mark Rogers. Because all I ever hear from Mark is how Ohio State's the biggest TV draw in the Big Ten. It's not even close. And that's why Fox took them for their big noon game against Marshall. And how does NBC put that primetime game, former East Division rivalry game on the road on Peacock? That shocked me a little bit. And I know they usually get one Peacock game, I think, so far they've gotten a Peacock game a year, but well, I guess we've only had 1 year of the new contract, but that just surprised me that that would be the game. If anything, you would think maybe last week Fox wanted what Fox wanted, I guess, and I guess they have the pecking order.
So the games that you would expect to be on the big networks typically are for good reason, but there are some quirks in the way this goes back and forth. So, for example, you and I had the conversation here in the last couple of weeks about how does the cascade of choices go? And the only thing I knew, as I expressed here currently, was that Fox got the number one choice for the entire season. It's Ohio State and Michigan every year. So that selection by CBS last weekend of USC Michigan, that apparently, according to Steve Dace, was the number 2 selection on the board. So it went from Fox to CBS. They took Michigan USC.
What did Fox take last week?
No, I mean for the entire
Oh,
season.
I got it. I got it. I
Yeah,
see.
for the
Okay, I
entire
see how you're
season.
talking. I got it. Pecking order for the whole year. I see.
Yeah, for the whole year.
Okay. Well, that makes more
And
sense. That it makes it a little bit more interesting and harder to predict from a week to week standpoint.
yeah, and I also know that that this Peacock situation, they're not going to put all the biggest rubbish on that channel that they want to draw people to have to
Sure.
do that to a certain extent.
I think from a business decision, it makes sense. And do you have Peacock?
I don't.
Are you going to get a trial, or are you going to try it
Uh,
out? Or
well, they won't give me a trial because I took a trial last year to
well,
watch a few games. Watch one game in particular. Yeah.
okay.
So, yeah, and that could turn out to be a decent game. Uh,
Could. I don't think Michigan State's really what they're 2-1, correct?
they're 3-1.
Or,
They're
excuse me, 3-1.
They're better than I expected, and
Yep.
most people. Yeah, they should have won last weekend. They should have beaten Boston College. I did watch the fourth quarter of that game, Michigan State Boston College, and if Michigan State's quarterback Aiden Childs hadn't gotten greedy, throwing a ball in the end zone to try to win the game, and it was first or second down, they may have been able to win the game, but they lost in the final minute or two.